Hello and welcome everyone to Immigration Talk Show. I'm your host Nipasa, and I have a very interesting webinar lined up for you. So stay with us before we have our guest for today join us. I have this very important disclaimer to read out. So, folks out there, by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts and attorneys, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. So, with that in mind, friends, thank you so much for joining us. We are streaming live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, X, and also on Instagram. So, check us out, connect with us, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel at Immigration Talk Show. Hit the bell icon so that whenever we have discussions, you can also join us and ask your questions. Better even, this could be like an opportunity for you because we have these amazing immigration attorneys join us where you can get immediate answers to your questions. Yes, friends, and that's it. Today we are going to discuss about 100 days in, how the Trump's campaign return is already shaping US immigration. So we are going to speak at length about this today and touch up on many things. Of course, we know every day that there have been a lot of changes and a lot of things that are affecting and shaping the US immigration. So stay with us, friends, and let's explore this today. So today's guest is a very, very amazing managing attorney, Ingrid Perez, and she's an accomplished immigration attorney with a passion for helping immigrants on her legal journey. Yes, friends, because she was also born and raised in Brazil. Ingrid personally experienced the immigration process when she moved to the United States herself at 9 years old. And this first-hand understanding really fuels her commitment to providing empathetic and effective legal representation. So, without further ado, please help me welcome her once again to our show. Hi, Ingrid. How are you doing today?
Hi, Nipasa. Nice to see you. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Good to see you. And yes, your new office seems all set now.
Yes, it is.
All right. Lovely. So, very interesting topic we've chose to discuss today. What would you like to tell folks out there to expect from today's discussion?
I think people should expect, a lot of information. It is a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts all the time. There is always something new in the world of immigration these days. Sometimes it's hard to keep up. So, I think that it's important for people to understand that, it may seem by design. There are a lot of changes, and that is where the country is going, and we have to learn to adapt to it.
Absolutely, we have to. There's no other option, friends. We need to learn the changes, keep ourselves updated because we cannot give an excuse that we didn't know about it. We just have to know everything about it, especially that we are immigrants and all the rules and laws apply to us. So that said, friends, you can also join us in this conversation by commenting wherever you're watching or dial this number to join us on call. And the number is 425-436-6335, and the access code when they ask for it is 988-888. Join us. So, Ingrid, with that, I have my first question. Now that President Trump is back in office, and we have already seen his first 100 days when it comes to immigration priorities. So, I mean, would you like to highlight some of the most important ones that we saw in the last 100 days? Hey, Ingrid, you
Goal
mentioned.
is the
Sorry, we lost you a little bit. Could you just go
Yes,
for
can
it?
you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. So I think what stands out in most people's minds is, and the things that people are seeing every day is the level of enforcement, immigration enforcement that we're seeing. Of course, we were anticipating enforcement at the border, sending the National Guard to the border, promising to rebuild the wall, and using the military to enforce entries or prevent entries at the southern US Mexico border. Those things were expected, and I believe a lot of those things are happening. Border crossings have come down significantly. So those things have started to take effect. The other piece of this that is most in our faces, I think, is the internal enforcement that we are seeing. Obviously, there's a lot of videos and a lot of news out there about people getting um, stopped by ICE, arrested, and placed in deportation proceedings, or being removed outside of the United States. We see a lot of that as well, and also enforcement for people who are here in United States with status. So we see people who have student visas or even permanent residents who are being detained and placed into removal proceedings as part of the internal enforcement, internal immigration enforcement. So we see a lot of that as well. I think, though, that it's important to keep in mind that, the numbers are also something that people should be, aware of because, according to, I think, some reports by ICE, the data that is reported by ICE, the number of deportations in and of themselves have not increased. The numbers have stayed relatively steady. It's just that the targets and the people who, are being enforced, immigration is being enforced, is changing. I think it's just more in our faces, these stories that we see every day. So there's a lot of that going on. I think another thing that, has changed significantly is the humanitarian protections for immigrants, right? So limiting asylum access, terminating TPS and other humanitarian routes. These things are things that are being litigated in court. So there's a lot of changes in that area, but that is something that the Trump administration vowed to do and something that they, pursued for sure. And of course, I think the one sort of change or one sort of priority that stood out the most and happened earlier in the administration was the attempt to end birthright citizenship. I think that is a significant step in enforcing and changing immigration policy. Of course, that is not in effect right now. The Supreme Court will hear this case in May. So we're waiting to see what happens with that.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you so much. I mean, yes, you brought us those great and important highlights. Throwing back to Trump's 100 days already. I know how time flies, and it feels like he's been here for quite some time now because we've seen so much happening, and every day is an interesting day with new updates, new things in how we're catching up, and how's it going with you and your law firm, by the way, IBP Law Firm.
I think for us, we're trying to stay in our lane in the sense that we are sticking to what we know. Of course, there's a lot of interest in immigration services, and different ways to navigate different issues. We are sticking to what we know best: employment-based immigration, family immigration. Of course, we have to stay updated on all the changes to make sure that our clients are getting the best representation. And it's what we always have done. It's how we operate. And I think, this time around here in the office, and in the first few months, it was very stressful, very difficult dealing with all the changes. But like anything else, we get used to it. We're resilient. We care about the clients, and we're going to do everything we can to, you know, take care of them and make sure that things work out for them.
Absolutely, yes. Always. And we'll sure hear one of your stories very soon. But before that, also, Ingrid, if you can tell us, have there been any executive actions or policy changes so far that, are directly affecting visa holders?
Yeah. So, in the beginning of the Trump administration, I mean, I know we're only, we're barely 100 days in. It's still the beginning, but I think in the very few days, there were many executive actions or executive orders that Trump signed, asking the various agencies, the various departments within the Department of Homeland Security and within the government to review policies and make recommendations. So those things, I believe a lot of that is still going on, and we're waiting to see what a lot of those recommendations are going to be. There is, a policy of America first. And I do anticipate that visas like TN or H-1Bs and Es, we're going to see some different policies and different recommendations as well in regards to those visas. To I think the Trump administration goal is to protect U.S. jobs, American jobs, and revisiting policies around those specific visas to see which recommendations that the administration would choose to adopt. We also have, TN specifically will be looked at, I believe, next year. The agreement between the United States, Canada, and Mexico is set to expire, and there will be renegotiations around that as well. So I expect some changes in the TN visa category as well.
Sure. I mean, I think all we can expect are more changes every day. That is what is happening. And I think by now, the people of America, the immigrants, and everybody in America are ready. They are ready for all the changes that are being thrown at them. So let's get on it, and more changes on TN as well as expected, so we'll look for it. Friends, if you are here, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates and the latest updates on US immigration. Our handle is at Immigration Talk Show. Check us out not just on YouTube but also on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on Instagram. And also now, hi to Sakshi, by the way. Hi, Sakshi. Thank you so much for joining us here on YouTube. We will take up your question very soon on this show. Just stay with us. So, Ingrid, I was saying, we really wanted to know what kind of cases are you seeing most frequently in your practice lately? And what challenges are people facing in those situations?
Well, happy to say that, we've seen a lot of H-1Bs, a lot of EB-2IWs, a lot of O-1s for individuals who maybe were not selected in the lottery for the H-1B. I'm seeing definitely an increase in interest in e-visas, which is great. I think that there's an interest still in people who want to come and invest in the United States and who want to live the American dream. We focus mostly on employment-based immigration. So those are the kinds of cases that we're seeing. And I'm glad that, people still want to come here, employers still want to hire, and it's great.
It is. All right. Perfect. Then thank you so much for sharing that with us as well. Any specific case you want to share that's coming to your mind, or something that's different?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll share actually a good story. About a couple of weeks ago, we had a family of five in my office, and they got their green cards through the EB2 and IW category after waiting for, I think, like almost 2.5 years. So it was a really great moment. It was a family of five, a couple and their three kids who have a business in the United States, and they were able to really build that business and create lots of jobs, and the business was a great addition to the economy. And finally, their green cards arrived. They did not get an interview because really these clients did everything perfectly. And also, I think they were very lucky. Things worked out for
Yes.
them. And they got their green cards, and it was so wonderful to see that happen. And it felt really great. And then just yesterday, we got another family based green card approved. This was a marriage based green card application, and it was approved without an interview. So that was surprising because we were expecting practically all cases to be called for interviews, all clients to be called for interviews. And I definitely see more interviews, happening. But it was a nice surprise to see that these two specific cases were approved without interviews. So that was really nice, and I'm sure that the clients are all relieved.
That is so wonderful. I mean, yes, like you said, we are expecting more interviews. We were expecting these RFEs, but lucky for these two families that, they could make it so easily, really. So I think this is a shout out to all friends out there that, that you can also get lucky. Don't think too much. If your documents are on the right path, on the right place, all updated, there's nothing really to worry about. So I think best is always to consult with an immigration attorney for your case so that you're guided on the right path and see how easily you can come through it. Yeah, and why not contact attorney Ingrid Perez herself, you can call her on her number 407-906-0068, or go email her at info@ibplaw.com, and definitely go visit www.ibplaw.com. So that is, those were really amazing stories. Thank you for sharing, Ingrid. And yeah, surprising, because at least, with all the news, we were not expecting that,
Yeah.
but lovely, really lovely to hear. So
I think you have to share the good news too, right? All the approvals, all the conquerors, and all of that. I think it's important to share those as
very
well.
important, yes, because it gives out hope and a positive side. People sort of, they feel very anxious right now, and when you say stories like these, makes them hopeful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, now, if you can tell us, have there been any updates or trends in how, NIW petitions are being reviewed?
This is my favorite topic. I love talking about NIWs.
Go ahead.
so, I think the last time we talked about NIWs exclusively, and we were talking about the different, the new policy guidance that came out January of this year. And and in talking with other attorneys and seeing trends and doing our own analysis of trends internally, we definitely see that immigration has shifted, right? Some people may say that it is, they're moving the goalposts, right? And I do agree with that sentiment quite a bit when it comes to EB2 and IWs. um, so now we are learning to adapt and anticipate these goalposts being shifted. I think that over the last month or so since I've talked to you, there's a lot of people who contacted my office with RFEs, requests for evidence, on I-140s for EB2 and IW that they either filed on their own or with another law firm, and they were looking for help to respond. And I've been collecting these RFEs for quite a while now, just so that I can have my own database and look at these. And I see that immigration is, definitely looking for broader impact in a person's endeavor. But what does that mean, right? Broader impact. Really, I think in the eyes of immigration today for the EB2 and IW is how strategically, how will your endeavor benefit an important strategic interest of the United States? How is it going to help make America number one on the global stage? How is it going to help an industry in the United States be number one on the global stage, right? So, and I'll give you an example, a micro and a macro example, right? A micro example could be, perhaps you are an engineer, or maybe you're a specialist in your field, and you were able to do a project or solve a problem, right, that maybe nobody could solve, and you were able to do it very quickly. And you set sort of a new standard now, right? Even if you were doing this on a project or for your employer, well, that is significant, because now you are having a broader impact in the field, right? And you could come to the United States to have that same impact in the US field, right? So in the US engineering field, you can come and you have this special technique, or this technique that improves a certain process. So that is how, on the micro level, right, an EB2 and IW may work. On the macro level, right, by virtue of you coming to the United States and helping the US industry or the US field become more efficient because you're introducing this new technique, it will help the United States become a leader on the global stage in that specific industry. So I think that for EB2 and IW petitioners or self-petitioners, it's really important to understand what immigration is looking for as far as the impact is concerned. Now, I know that not everybody, will be submitting petitions with attorneys, but if you want to understand how to perhaps argue your case, right, you have to show immigration that the problem you are solving is going to help the United States become a leader. It is going to help the United States be number one, right? We're talking about American exceptionalism here, and that is what the United States is looking for in EB2 and IW petitions. So we've still received approvals with EB2 NIWs. Of course, we're getting RFEs as well. Um, but that is what the focus should be. I think also, it's important to be very strategic with these filings, not dump everything at USCIS, at the officer who's going to be reading your case. Really be strategic and focus on maybe 1 to 3 points, right? 1 to 3 arguments of how your endeavor will help the United States. That is how we're approaching these filings right now, and just trying to make them leaner, more succinct, and really just, to the point of exactly, driving the point home that we really want the immigration officer to come away with.
All right. There you go. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for sharing that with us. And we should definitely speak with Sakshi and reply to her comment as well. So let's take that quickly. Sakshi, hi again. She's saying, I've heard rumors that Trump campaign plans to tighten the eligibility for green cards, especially for workers from certain countries. As an immigrant who's already been waiting for my green card for a while, what could this mean for my application?
Well, I think that, we heard, well, during Trump 1.1, we had the Muslim ban where people from certain countries were unable to come to the United States, and a lot of people were affected by that. We do have reports as well that Trump is putting restrictions on certain countries, although that has not been official yet. And I think the New York Times was reporting something like there was a list of like a three tier list, a red list, a yellow list, and maybe an orange list of countries. I don't recall exactly, but if you were on the red list, then these people would now be allowed to come to the United States. People on the yellow list, where the countries on yellow list had to have heightened scrutiny, and maybe the countries on the orange list had to, abide by some requirements from the United States in order to have their citizens be able to come to the U.S. So I have not seen anything that is official yet. However, I do have clients from, the countries that were mentioned on those lists that are worried, right? They're worried because they're in the process, they're in the immigration process, and they're worried of whether or not they won't be able to, actually complete their immigration process during this administration or until this ban is lifted. So I think as of right now, there's nothing official yet. This was, something that was reported in the New York Times, but I think it's definitely something to watch, and something that, people should be prepared for. And not make, if you're outside of the United States, don't sell your house, don't sell your car, wait until you have that visa on your passport so that you can, make that transition, more confidently.
Right, right. Very, very good advice, I would say. Good tip, because we need to make sure, be 100% sure first, and only then move forward, especially big decisions like, your properties. So thank you so much for that, Ingrid. And now, Sakshi, thank you also for your question. If you have any more questions, please feel free to comment. And folks, you can also join us on call. The number is 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988-888. Join us. And hi, Bhargav. Well, hi. We got another question, so we'll quickly take that up as well. Bhargav is saying Trump's immigration crackdown to target 2 million undocumented individuals with criminal records, or final removal orders via large scale enforcement actions and workplace raids. Does this policy mean that? I think Bhargav is still typing. But what would you like to say for this first part? Anything, Ingrid?
Yeah, so this is a very ambitious goal. I think it was reported somewhere that the goal is to deport a million individuals, a million undocumented people a year, which is a very ambitious goal. It will cost the United States a lot of money to be able to do that. So, I think I think people have to be mindful of what they hear or see as headlines on the news and what could actually happen, like the real logistics that it is required in order to make this happen. One of the things that has been said recently by the Trump administration is that they want to expedite these or make these removals faster, which is why they are removing people to like El Salvador, for example, without giving them the opportunity to have their case heard in court. And of course, there's a lot of controversy around that because our entire American system of justice is based on this idea of due process, right? So right now that is being challenged in the courts. And I believe that there is a pause right now where the Trump administration cannot deport people this way. And if you think about it logistically, to deport 1 million people a year is, requires a huge operation. At the same time, the Trump administration is removing, firing judges and limiting the size of the judiciary and immigration courts. So it becomes very difficult to achieve this if the infrastructure is not in place. So at that point, we run the possibility of having these actions that bring a lot of shock to the population, right? And that is challenging court. And I think makes it harder for them to achieve this goal. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind. I think I mentioned earlier that the numbers that have been reported by ICE and Customs and Border Protection, as far as the number of people that have been removed, have not changed significantly from last year. So and that is enough. That is in part because removing people from the United States requires an infrastructure, and our infrastructure, our immigration removal infrastructure, is not great. And I'm not talking about detention centers. I'm talking about judges. I'm talking about cases in immigration court that have been lingering for years and years and years. Asylum applications that have been also pending for many, many years. Just a system that is completely broken and operates, by mail, and it's very difficult for people to navigate the system. So, that is the infrastructure that I think, any administration should focus on if they want to make immigration more efficient, if they want to resolve the problems of our current immigration system. The things that we have going on today doesn't meet the needs of today's society, and I think that's very important to understand.
Absolutely. And we got the second bit of Bhargav's comments where he's asking, does this policy mean that anyone who has committed even a minor offense, such as a misdemeanor, could face deportation? Or are there specific criteria for determining which crimes make someone eligible for removal?
So this is a great question. Under the Biden administration, Biden did issue a set of priorities, of enforcement priorities, which really allowed, immigration enforcement to focus on a specific subset of individuals who were in the United States that the prior administration had identified as removal or enforcement priorities. Right, people who had convictions, criminal convictions, those were the priorities. Trump did away with those Biden priorities, and there's no real, understanding with Trump other than everybody is on the chopping block. We still have crimes that make people removable from the United States, right? That make people inadmissible, meaning that if they have those convictions on their records or those activities, they are unable to get a visa or unable to get permanent residency. That has always been the case, But what we are seeing is, and especially what is being reported, is that, there is greater enforcement now for violations that are relatively minor, that may not fit within these crimes of moral turpitude, or these crimes that make people eligible for certain immigration benefits. Those violations are also being, people with those violations are also being targeted. And of course there has been lots of reports of people with minor traffic stops, or traffic citations, or misdemeanor convictions that have been targeted. And I think it's really important for people who are permanent residents, people who have green cards, if they have a criminal conviction of any kind, speak to an immigration attorney before you leave the United States, because there's been a lot of reports about green card holders being, detained at the border because they have money. Important to keep that in mind.
Yes, absolutely. And also, I hear people are facing sort of some difficulties, coming back into the US again if they have stayed way too long outside, maybe in their home countries. Would you like to say anything about that as well?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, and that's happened to a few of my clients as well. I mean, and sadly, a lot of my clients, even those, even green card holders and naturalized U.S. citizens, are calling us and asking, hey, should I be worried? And my advice is, any for a green card holder, any non-citizen, anytime you leave the country and you re-enter, you are asking for permission to come back in, right? Obviously, if you're a US citizen, the US has to let you in. If you're a green card holder, they will generally let you in, but if you have something on your record that flags more, secondary inspection, they will take you to secondary inspection and ask you questions. I think in that situation is really important that people have an immigration lawyer's card available in their if they're ever in that situation. It's also really important that people do not sign anything at a port of entry unless they know exactly what it is they're signing, because Customs and Border Protection can have you sign or can ask you to sign a document where you are abandoning your permanent residency, and you don't want to do that inadvertently. And I'm not saying this to spread fear or anything, but really just to spread awareness that you can say no, right, to signing anything, and you can ask to speak to an attorney first, and it's very important to know that you have those rights. um, so I think that for people traveling as well, it's important to have your documents in order. It is important, if you're a permanent resident, to maintain your residency in the United States. You don't want to be spending a majority of your time outside of the United States, because that could, cause a CBP officer to conclude that you are trying to have it both ways, that you're, just coming to the United States temporarily to keep your green card. So it's really important that you maintain your physical presence here, you know, file your taxes, do everything the right way, be a good citizen so that you can become a US citizen eventually and not have to worry about this anymore.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for taking that up as well. And thank you, Bhargav, for your question. We also have Ganesh join us, so let's take that up as well, Ingrid. This is about J1. So I'm on J1 visa right now, and I've been told that Trump administration might impose new restrictions on certain visa holders, especially in sectors like tech and healthcare. Could these changes affect my ability to stay in the US after my program ends?
Well, it depends. It depends on how you're looking to stay in the United States after your program ends. So, for example, assuming that you're not subject to the 2 year home country requirement, of course, right, where a lot of J1 visa holders are subject to the 2 year home country requirement, and later on you want to switch to H1B or an O, or maybe you meet a US citizen and you decide to get married and get a green card, right? So it just very much depends on how you're planning on staying here in the United States. But if you're specifically thinking about tech and the healthcare sector, right, I think it's important to review the priorities of the administration, in these specific fields, and how they perhaps, are being advanced, right, through immigration policies. So in AI, for example, right, there is an executive order, or an executive memo that talks about the importance of the United States advancing AI, right? So look into that, because that is something that may affect immigration policies. Again, we're still within the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and we're waiting to hear these recommendations that Trump ordered all departments to make, right, to revisit the policies and things like that. But can it affect certain sectors? Absolutely, right. So, in part of Donald Trump's platform is to keep America competitive, right? Keep America as a leader in the world stage when it comes to different industries. And if technology and healthcare, if those are areas that, the United States has a priority in, then I think,
Yes, for sure, Ingrid. Thank you so much for taking that up as well, and um, thank you, Ganesh, for your question. And folks out there, please feel free to join us with your comments. And to all those of you who resonate with our content and whatever Ingrid has been sharing with us, her expertise and knowledge, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Our handle is at Immigration Talk Show. We are not just on YouTube, but also on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on Instagram. So, Ingrid, can you hear us now? We lost
Yes.
you a bit. So, yeah, I'm so sorry. We lost you a bit. But if you want to add more to Ganesha's question, you may.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was just going to say that I think that, there's still a lot to be seen. I'll just wrap up by saying that we're still waiting for those recommendations for specific sectors, but I think it's always important to kind of know where the priorities are of the administration, because I think that will inform a lot of immigration policies as well. So just, be on the lookout for that.
Okay. Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you, Ingrid, for your question. Thank you, Ganesh, for your question. And thank you, Ingrid, for taking that up. So, Ingrid, also wanted to know if, because are we seeing more requests for evidence, RFEs, or denials in employment based immigration cases under the current policy?
I think in the world of self petitions like EB1As and EB2NIWs, EB2NIWs, definitely, there has definitely been an increase in requests for evidence, especially out of the premium process, office. I think that if you're filing a case, premium process, expect an RFE. So I think in those fields, we're definitely seeing an increase in requests for evidence. Um, those are discretionary benefits. And because of the recent policy guidance changes, applicants are adapting, attorneys are adapting, and I think the USCIS officers who are learning, to navigate this new guide are also adapting. We are seeing a bit of, inconsistent requests for evidence where, perhaps newer requirements are being created, right, where they don't necessarily exist in the law. So I think it's important to, keep in mind and be strategic on the responses, right? And if cases do get denied, which they have been getting denied as far as EB1As and EB2NIWs, and the demand for EB1As is also very high, and those cases are very difficult. I think that, it's important to keep in mind the options whether to refile or do a motion to reopen and reconsider. I think that the industries that are perhaps, or the individuals, professions who are perhaps hardest affected by the new guidance are people in the IT industry, software engineers. These individuals, I think, are having a harder time convincing immigration, to approve an NIW, just because of the new policy guidance. And of course, what happened over the last, couple of years since 2022, where there was just so many people applying, or so many people submitting petitions in this category. And there was I think now we're going through a period of recalibration in these types of visas.
Right, right. And, you were saying about new things that they are asking for. So, biometrics is what I hear. And another one is addresses, their home addresses, even for H1B applicants only. So, would you like to highlight anything on these lines, or if it's already started, the practice has already started?
I think, for employment based visas, it's very important for employees and employers to stay compliant and on top of, these cases as much as possible, because there has been announcements that there will be more in-site inspections, confirming that the individual is working at the location, that it's a bona fide job offer. I think it's very important for employees, people on H-1Bs and different work visas, to keep their documents with them, organized in a safe place, make copies of everything, keep everything stored in a really safe location, keep track of dates. Keeping track of dates is incredibly important, especially if you're here with family members and maybe family members came to the United States after you, keeping track of their dates as well, because you don't want to inadvertently or, unintentionally miss a deadline. No, I always tell people, put on your calendar, that you're status expires, in 6 months, so you can plan and have enough time to figure that out. I think that's also really important. And any travel plans need to be discussed with your attorney. I think that's also very, very important in this world.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for highlighting those very important points to keep in mind. And yes, friends, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Our handle is at Immigration Talk Show. And you can also check us out not just on YouTube, but also on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and on Instagram. So check us out and join us now to ask your questions. All you have to do is comment wherever you're watching, or call us on this number 425-436-6335, and the access code is 988888. So today, friends, we are discussing on 100 days in, how the Trump's campaign return is already shaping the US immigration. And we have with us none other than attorney Ingrid Perez. And yes, it's really nice to have her here, to explain to us and shed light on all these questions that we have for her today. So thank you once again, Ingrid.
You're
And
welcome.
we do have more questions, so we will address them. But also at the same time, I would like to tell you that we will take up some of our Facebook questions that we receive in our group. So, Control, please display them soon. But meanwhile, Ingrid, if you can tell us also, how have visa interviews and consular processes changed, if at all, since Trump resumed office?
The biggest change that has happened is the interview waivers, right? During the prior administration, a lot more people qualified for interview waivers. And now a lot more people have to have interviews at US embassies and consulates abroad. So that has been the biggest change for sure. And, one thing that I would also add is that in certain countries, we're seeing a lot more scrutiny for employment based visa applications where the embassies or the consular officers are refusing the visas and sending the petitions back to USCIS for reconsideration. So I think that for any person going to an employment based visa interview, whether that is an immigrant visa or a non immigrant visa, it is very important to be ready to discuss your case, be ready to talk about your qualifications, where the job is going to be, the work that you're going to do, and how you are going to be able to actually do the work, right? So I think it's really important to prepare for the interview and be ready to talk about the work, your profile, your background, your resume. All of that is very important. So you don't run the risk of the consular officer having doubts about the petition that USCIS approved and having it sent back to USCIS and refusing your visa. I think that's very, very important to prepare.
For sure, yes. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for telling us that as well. And I hope that people out there, folks out there who have joined us, all viewers, I hope you're taking notes and keeping in mind as well. So, yes, if there is anything we can help you or assist you with, with answers, do comment. And yes, our handle is at Immigration Talk Show. Subscribe and ring that bell so that you will be notified whenever we have discussions like these. Right. So, Ingrid, let's take up some of our Facebook questions now. So, this is saying, my friend's I-140 got denied recently at first attempt, even without getting an RFE. Has anyone got this experience? Any chance to be approved? EB3 unskilled.
So that has never happened to me, but I know that that has happened before. I would tell your friend to look at the reasons why the petition was denied and see if they can do a motion to reopen or reconsider. It's kind of hard to say exactly without understanding the reasons for the denial. If for example there wasn't an RFE, are you sure there wasn't an RFE? Because a lot of times USCIS does send an RFE, but maybe you never get it in the mail, or the employer, the petitioner, never gets it in the mail. So it's very important to monitor these cases, because if you don't receive the RFE in the mail, right, it's like you never got an RFE, but it was actually sent over. So it's important in those situations to contact USCIS and make sure that, if you see on the case status website that an RFE was issued, that you actually received the RFE. So double check that. But yeah, so I think, keeping in mind the dates on the denial and the dates, the deadlines to file a motion to reconsider is really important in this situation. It's hard to say without understanding exactly the reasons for the denial.
Right, right. It is happening. So thank you so much, Ingrid, for taking this up. And now let's go on to our next one. This is from an anonymous participant. Hello. Usually, how long the process of I 130? My husband is my sponsor for my I 130. He applied that was last year, August. Thank you.
So the I-130 is an immigrant petition for the family category, assuming that this husband is a US citizen and the person is outside of the United States. Unfortunately, these cases are taking a really long time. The processing for an I-130 petition by a US citizen spouse for a foreign spouse who's living abroad is incredibly long. Even on the USCIS's website, it's saying that it's something like 3 months or so, which is insane, right? Compare that to if a person is here in the United States, and it's a spouse petition by a U.S. citizen for a foreign national who's physically present in the United States. That case can go significantly faster, especially in a situation where the foreign national is also filing a concurrent green card application or an I-485. I've had those cases get approved relatively fast compared to just how the I-130s are taking for spouses who are outside of the United States. I have a lot of I-130s that have been pending for longer than a year. And when we do inquiries with USCIS, there's nothing we can do because according to the normal processing times, these are taking some 30 plus months, which, you know, it's really unfair for a couple that, to be forced to live apart from each other for that long. It's really difficult on the family. So I can imagine how difficult it must be for this person as well. Check the monitoring, check the case processing times, make sure that you're always on that website. And as soon as you're able to submit an inquiry as to why the case has been going on longer than it's supposed to, make that inquiry.
Right, right. It sounds very interesting and sad at the same time. And with all this, I mean, this whole, process, this long wait, I mean, relationships also could see many changes because of the challenges that they have to stay distant from each other, right? Ingrid, has it ever happened to you?
It's
Do you
very
have any cases like that?
well. I've had cases where U.S. citizen is filing for a petition for a foreign national, and then their relationship doesn't work out, because the distance is so it's difficult. I mean, things like that happen, right? That's unfortunately it does. But it does create such a strain in the couple, right? Especially for perhaps one person who's trying to, you know, go back and forth, usually the US citizen who's going back and forth between the US and the spouse's
Exactly.
country to make sure that they maintain that relationship and to see each other. It's really difficult. And flights aren't cheap. Travel's not cheap. It's a huge financial strain.
Yes, true, true. Thank you, Ingrid, for highlighting that as well. Now we'll go on to our next question. This is also from an anonymous member saying, hi everyone, I'm currently on H1B. Control, if you can zoom in a little bit, please. I'm currently on an H1B and recently transferred roles within the same company from a product manager position to a software engineer role. I made the move assuming it would be a smooth internal transition, but I've now realized that an H1B amendment should have been filed before switching, since the roles are quite different. And has anyone been in a similar situation? Did you have to face consequences, or were you able to fix it by filing the amendment after the switch? Any guidance or suggestions would be greatly appreciated. Trying to stay calm and figure out the best next steps before talking to HR or anybody legal.
So this is a situation where legal should have been, brought in before this change for sure, because the H-1B is tied to the position. I mean, even if it's within the same company, product manager and software engineer, those sound, those are two completely different job titles. And I'm gonna, go out on a limb here and assume that they have completely different job descriptions, job duties. So for sure, an H-1B amendment should have been filed before the switch. In this situation, there may be an able to save this person's case by doing a non-protunct request. Um, and I would say speak to the attorney as soon as possible and bring this up to his or her attention to get this resolved, because you want to make sure that you stay compliant with your H-1B.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for taking that up. And anonymous member, I wish I knew your name, but thank you for your question. Let's go on to our next one. Vignesh is asking, when can I expect my PD to become current? EB2 India, May 2015.
I wish I could tell you, but I can't. Um, you know, we'll see if we have any jumps in the new quarter, of this year, and we'll see if we have any jumps in fiscal year, next fiscal year, October 1st. But I'm sorry, I wish I could give you an answer. I don't know.
Yes. Sure. Thank you so much, Ingrid, though. And folks out there, Vignesh, also please do not forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon so that you're notified whenever we have updates on this as well. And we really look forward to visa bulletins every month. So let's hope for the best for you. All the best. Now we got another anonymous participant asking, if F1 student decide to change it E2 in the middle of the degrees, will it have a negative impact during the interview?
Um, I think like any other change, like I have a lot of individuals who change from tourist or B2 status to E2. Based on this question, I am assuming that the person is going to apply for an E2 at the consulate abroad, so they will be going to an interview. I think that it is, expected for the immigration or the customs. I'm sorry, the consular officer to ask questions around the F1 students' activities. To make sure that they weren't inadvertently working without authorization or anything like that in the E2 company. I don't necessarily see a problem with this, because if you have been maintaining your non-immigrant status, you're now just switching to another non-immigrant status. I don't see a problem with it, though. We live in a different world now, so it's very important to be prepared. If you're doing an F1 change in the United States, where you're just changing your status with the USCIS, you're probably not going to have to be going to an interview abroad. And this change can be approved by USCIS. However, if you then later on decide to get an E2 visa, you should be just prepared to, provide evidence that you were maintaining your status, and all of that, so that they don't refuse your visa for those reasons.
Okay. Thank you so much for taking that up, anonymous, and also anonymous participant, for your question. I think with that, we have definitely covered all of our questions from our audience, Ingrid. And also, I did have a couple more questions. So before we leave, if you could actually give out some legal tips that you give out to families or individuals out there who are waiting on green card approvals during this period of change.
Yeah. The question that I get asked most often after we file a visa application or a petition or a green card application is, what's going on with my case? Once we file a case with the immigration authorities, we don't know what's going on with the case. Immigration communicates with us by mail, right? We can't see, unfortunately, behind that wall where the immigration cases are being handled to know exactly what part of the process you're in, right? But I can generally explain that, first a case has to go through the normal background checks. Under the current administration, there is, more extreme vetting. So these cases probably will take longer, the further in we go. So just expect the cases to take long, and not there's not much that can be done to make things go faster. So I think it's important to have patience and understand that the government operates on their time and not on our time. Immigration is slow, it's bureaucratic. it's important to be patient. So just so that you can maintain your sanity. And that's maybe not so much legal advice, but just more, personal advice so that you maintain your sanity during the process, and not go crazy waiting for when things are going to happen. However, of course, on the flip side of that is if a case does go beyond what is typical, right, then there are ways to address that as well. But for the most part, I think it's important to just you know, remain updated on the case, make sure that, you track expiration dates, communicate with your attorney, especially if you're moving, update your address with immigration. That is very important. Carry your documents with you, especially now where, we're seeing a lot of domestic enforcement. It's very, very important for people on H-1Bs or green card holders, anybody here on an F-1 visa to carry proof of their status with
Yes.
them. That is incredibly important.
Yes, extremely important points. Thank you so much, Ingrid, for highlighting them. And I hope you've taken down those tips, friends, before we ended our show. So I think I can only say thank you so much, Ingrid, for your time and for sharing your expertise and such important updates and information here in today's session. So it was really lovely having you here with us today.
Likewise, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Ingrid. And folks, do not forget to contact attorney Ingrid Perez herself if you especially need one on one consultation with your case. Her number is 407 906 0068. And you can also email attorney Ingrid at info@ibplaw.com and go visit ibplaw.com to get to know more about attorney Ingrid Perez and IBP Law. So thank you so much once again, Ingrid. Have a wonderful day. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. Likewise.
Sure. Folks, you can also join me or ask me your questions. You can write to me. My email address is nipa@staffingly.com, and you can also call me on my number. This is also my WhatsApp number. My number is 408 335 6444. And I hope that you really resonated with today's session, with Attorney Ingrid Perez from IBP Law. It was really lovely having her. Don't forget to check her out. She's there also on LinkedIn, and check us out. We are on, well, not just on YouTube at Immigration Talk Show. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Share this handle also with your friends and family who could benefit most because we come up with the latest updates on US immigration. So please share this and ask them to like and share as well. So, yes, check us out. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, X, and on Instagram as well. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. But stay tuned because we got some really amazing webinars lined up here on our channel, and you would not want to miss out on these latest updates and great informative sessions that we have. So yes, we do have more joining us. So we do have Deepika Gupta, who's going to join us very, very soon. Dr. Deepika Gupta at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. We also have Ms. Attorney Uma Mantravadi joining us at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. So check them out and stay tuned here on Immigration Talk Show. Bye for now.